So I'm looking at the cover story that I did for the April 2000 issue of Maximum PC when I was a freelancer.
I'm impressed you were able to find these.
They're all in Bookstock. When I was the editor-in-chief of the magazine, they let me do whatever I wanted, so I uploaded them to Bookstock Google.
No kidding.
And I also just posted PDFs on the website so people could just download them. Yes.
Wow.
Hey, I was foresightful. I knew 20 years from now I would need I need a copy of this magazine.
One day you would want to be able to remind yourself that you didn't give a score to Windows 2000. Is that what I understand?
Before we get to that,
possible.
Before we get to that, you got to look at the cover of this April 2000 issue of Maximum PC.
Is this really well? You can Google it. Just Google the cover of Maximum PC
just go to
April 2000.
Google Books and search for April 2000
just this
Maximum
big,
PC.
Severe font. Windows 2000 on trial.
That's Impact, sir.
Is that Impact?
I'm pretty sure it's Impact.
And there's a big illustration of a judge with a gavel who's about to smash a Windows 2000
He's like a British judge too. He has like a wig.
Windows 2000 on trial.
So yeah, it's like a 6-page cover story.
Wow.
And
you wrote that cover story?
I wrote that cover. It was the second thing I wrote for the magazine. The first thing was MP3 software. And we talk about all the different stuff that they added, yada, yada, yada. I'd been running the beta for a while, which I probably got through actually Microsoft when I know I said I probably stole it, but I probably got it through Microsoft, the thing. We didn't put a verdict on it because it wasn't a review. It was a cover story.
Okay. So the review presumably came later?
Yeah, the gist is if you're running Windows NT4 and you want DirectX 7 USB and plug and play.
Wow, they were up to DirectX 7 by then?
Yeah.
Huh.
Windows 2000 Pro is for you. It's a simple upgrade. So you could upgrade from 90X to 2000. You couldn't do that with NT4. You had to start from scratch with NT4. And it was a little bit slower than NT4, but you were better off on almost everything.
All that stuff.
You had to check the hardware compatibility list, which was very small. And if you're primarily a gamer, we told people to stick with Windows 98 because the frame rates were better for DirectX stuff. Because the DirectX drivers were better. OpenGL was pretty much even.
I guess I was
looking
still
at the benchmarks.
Mostly doing OpenGL stuff at that time. Yeah, because like Quake 3 would have been still the big game at that point.
Yeah, so as a data point, Quake 3 running at 640 by 480, 3D accelerated, presumably. Yeah, it was all 3D accelerated. You were looking at like 61 frames a second on a Windows 2000 machine or 76 frames a second on a Windows 98 machine. So it was like a 10%, 15%.
That's a big gap.
Yeah.
But bleeding edge. That's where I like to live.
Welcome to another episode of Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
Hi, I'm Brad.
Hey, Bleeding Edge. That's where we live.
Windows time.
Yeah, let's okay, so
nothing more exciting and rebellious than Windows, I like to say.
This seemed like a pretty good idea when we suggested it the other night at 11 o'clock. But so far, we're ranking Windows.
Yes.
If you missed last week, spoilers.
Thank you for joining us for our Windows lists.
Creating an ordered list of Windows
already in progress.
Yes. So far, we've ranked up to Windows ME, the 6th major release of Windows, let's say. In the number 6 slot, Windows ME, Garbo.
Yes.
In the number 5 slot, mostly ineffective Windows 3.1. In the number 4 slot, Windows 95. Pretty good, but not as good as we remember. Number 3,
an important milestone.
Yeah, it had a TCP/IP stack. That was a big deal.
Yes.
In the number 3 slot, Windows NT4. Bringing up the mom's spaghetti number 2 slot, Windows 98. And number 1, Windows 2000.
Turn of the century.
Turn of the century.
Yeah. Exciting time.
So, okay, we're into a milestone moment. This is where I think so far we haven't been very controversial.
Okay.
Like Windows 98, pretty good.
Yeah, like to be clear, we're not going to massage this list. We're not going to go out of our way to be iconoclastic or anything.
No, and when we get to the end, we're going to talk through the whole thing and reorganize the whole thing.
But I do hope that this thing doesn't just basically turn out to be a chronological list of Windows.
Well, we fixed that because Windows ME, the most recent one, is at the bottom of the list now.
Yes, let the Windows...
Our bases are covered.
Let the Windows fall where they may.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Controversial.
So Windows XP.
Yes.
came out in 2001.
Did it? Wait, that fast?
It was fast.
After 2000?
They were hammering out Windows left and right back
Dude,
then.
really?
Now you say that, I'm suddenly worried. But
In my mind, it was like 2003-ish.
May have been 2002.
Or something.
October 25th, 2001.
No kidding.
It's like a steel trap up there.
Year and a half then after 2000. Something.
Yeah, but like a year after Windows ME.
God, they were just banging them out back then.
Well, I mean, it was a simpler time.
And like you said last episode, that was like a big money maker for various companies, right?
Well, but they wanted to push everything onto Windows XP because as the people were getting more internet connected. Remember, this is a time when people would get cable modems, DSL modems,
Right.
and they'd just plug their computer straight into the internet.
Yes.
Like mad people.
God, you're right.
It was before routers. It was before firewalls.
That's right. You would plug the
just-
Ethernet straight from the cable modem into the computer.
Boom, here's my unupdated, not automatically updating Windows 2000
that
machine.
Horrifying.
Plugged straight into the raw dog internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bad time.
Even when I had a roommate, when we got our first cable modem, I remember we just bought a switch.
Yeah.
Like a 10 base, not 10 base, 100 base T?
100 base T,
probably would have been
probably.
100 base T. 100.
Yeah.
In fact, I still have that D-Link switch.
Oh, God.
Made out of metal. It felt like built like a tank.
I like Netgear switches because they were made out of metal, too.
But even then, it was
You just paid.
two of us we paid for two static IPs
Yep.
and plugged our computers into that switch and then plugged that switch into the cable modem.
$4 a month got you an extra IP back then.
Never even thought about that we were just sitting there with unprotected computers directly on the internet for
I remember
years.
It was midway through the Windows 2000. I had a server that ran 24/7 in my apartment in the Haight.
Wow.
And my Covad ISP sent me an email that was like, hey, we're turning off your internet if you don't take this Windows 2000 machine off of the network without a firewall.
Wow.
Because it's infecting every other node on this subnet.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's humbling.
And I was like, I didn't ever think about this stuff before. They're like, yeah, nobody does. Fix it. Here's the URL.
Wow.
Go here and do this stuff.
Wow.
You're probably going to have to reinstall, nerd. So the good news is Windows XP came out and fixed all of the security problems with Windows.
Okay.
It brought 32-bit to the mass market.
And by that, you just mean no, but not the mass market was not running 2000.
Or a 98.
Right. What I mean is like XP was not fundamentally different under the hood from 2000, right? It was just an evolution of that. Same
XP at launch was just an evolution of Windows 2000.
Same basic kernel, same structure.
I don't think it included a firewall even.
Okay.
But also around that time, people started buying routers to put multiple computers on the network at the same time.
That was the time people were really getting permanent internet connections, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
2001 again, just to reiterate.
2001.
God, wow. Okay.
And XP also had the first major redesign of the Windows UI since 95.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't.
Oh, you don't like it?
No.
You don't like having File Explorer and your control panel right there, one click away from you at all the times?
Oh, I don't remember that stuff. Was that not common to 2000 and so forth?
You had to click
I should
down
go back
to
and
the
look
menus.
at screenshots. Did 2000 basically just kind of look like an involved 95? I guess it did.
Yeah,
right?
it did. It looked like evolved Windows 95, Windows ME.
I'm talking more just aesthetically. I really don't care for the big bulbous like red and blue everything.
Oh, XP started with the bubbles.
Yeah. And the kind of famous, in fact, it's from Northern California, right? The famous wallpaper.
Yeah, Luna. It's up in Marin someplace.
The rolling green hill.
There's a subdivision there now.
That whole look to the graphical shell, I did not care for.
It was so friendly. So the thing about Windows XP was it had Windows 2000 had dynamic, not dynamic, but personalizable start menu. So it wasn't just like an alphabetized list of all the stuff installed on your computer.
Oh, could you not even customize the
You couldn't customize it before 98.
Huh.
Yeah. Windows XP let you pin some stuff up there. It let you. It was the launch of the modern control panel.
Okay.
Like the one with the subheadings that you like versus having a bunch of little applets. You just had them bundled up together.
The one that is still with us if you dig for it.
That still haunts us today. Yeah.
Windows 10.
It's the beginning of my pictures and my music and my documents.
Huh. Interesting.
Before that, they were just called documents and pictures and music.
Okay. But still no user accounts, right?
No user accounts. You had Windows account. Yeah, you could log off and turn off two separate actions. If you'll note, I'm going to flip it over so you just see it upside down. But the administrator panel, that was your username.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had users.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing this up because a few episodes ago we talked about discrete kernel and user space.
That's
under the hood from user accounts. I'm sorry. That's what I was getting mixed up. But so XP did not have that stuff, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
No, XP did not. Yeah. Well, eventually XP got that stuff.
But far too late.
Yeah.
I think.
So I think like XP was a good, It also did the smart folders, so you could have like an HTML folder. Like your pictures had thumbnails and stuff like that. You could design that if you wanted, or like the application providers could do fancy stuff.
This is a strong list of improvements.
Windows Media Player.
As much as I don't like the look of Windows XP,
Windows Messenger.
There's like a lot of what I think of as modern Windows apparently came about with this.
It did. However, also probably the most insecure version of Windows ever made.
Yes, that is
like launch Windows XP. One debacle after the next.
Well, was it that bad up front, or was it?
It took a year.
I was going to say it must have been like they needed a critical mass in the market before it's worth the time of insidious people to develop these attacks, right?
So what happened was all the people running Windows 95, 90, like you could upgrade Windows 95 to XP, right?
Okay.
All of the old versions of Windows, it was really good. It ran on everything. People upgraded all their old Windows as if it had enough RAM.
Do you contend that was the pathway, that people that were still on 95 and 98 at this time probably went straight to XP?
Most of them probably just went and bought new computers.
Well, right, but they never ran 2000. They never ran.
Nobody ran 2000 outside of commerce. Like enterprise businesses ran 2000 and
people
nerds.
Like us.
Yeah.
Okay.
ME, presumably they sold machines for that year that it was out. Same thing for Windows 98 the year before that, or the year and a half before that. But yeah, presumably
for all intents and purposes, XP is the successor to like the 98
also
sort of regime.
Also during XP, the cost of computers went way down. So this was when you were seeing like $500 machines that weren't complete garbage.
Okay.
So like you could buy a computer for your kid, and your kid could have a computer and you could have a computer. So like we started seeing 2 and 3 computer households and stuff like that.
Laptops maybe getting better at this time.
Yeah, this was the first Windows. So when Microsoft sent review units for Windows XP, they sent a compact laptop that I think even had Wi-Fi built in, maybe. Oh, it may not have. That may have been the one that you had a PCM-CIA card.
That's a really interesting window on the tech press back then to me. Did they, when it was time to review Windows, did they not just send out Windows?
So they sent out copy.
Okay.
But they also sent out the Windows reference machine.
No kidding.
So
you would get every time a Windows release, they would straight up send the publication to computer?
Not every time.
Okay.
But on big releases, like for Longhorn, they definitely did that. They would send out like what was the standard issue computer that they handed out to people on that team, so that it was the one that they built for, so it had the best drivers and the best everything. So it was like
here is the optimal Windows experience.
Yeah. Okay. And since part of the deal with Windows XP was they were saying you're going to get much better battery life, they wanted to showcase and also laptop drivers lagged really a long time back then. They sent that one specifically so you could see what battery life was going to be like.
Okay.
So I think Windows XP is probably middle of the pack for me. In terms of historic legacy?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, huge.
In terms of actually, was this a thing that was good?
It got everybody onto 32-bit Windows.
That's true.
Like everybody.
And user accounts and all of the stuff that ended up being the baseline for what we expect on Windows now.
Yes.
We still use that control panel today.
Yes.
But I think that this is, like, I would say this is like between NT4 and 98, probably.
Between NT4 and 98.
98 brought USB. USB is a big deal. Maybe between 98 and 2000. I don't think it's better than 2000.
I feel like so to be clear, your big knock against it is the insecure nature of it.
Hold on.
Is that like I said, I don't like the UI, so that's kind of holding it back for me.
Are we going to talk about SP2 as a separate Windows?
Oh no, I don't think I think we have to.
Okay, well, so if we're talking about SP2, it's above 2000 for sure.
I think the rubric there has to be, if you bought it, then what I mean is if you had access to all of that, the full scope of Windows XP with one purchase, then that's one thing, right?
But Windows SP2 added the firewall, it added user account control, it added all of these things.
But I just mean I think we incorporate that into all of XP, right? Because if you bought XP on day one, then you still had access to SP2 without paying more money, so it still counts as one thing.
Yeah, but you still ran a real bad OS for like a year.
Well, no, then we just
janky and bad.
That's why we're the professionals here.
Oh man,
now we have to weigh pros and cons.
This is tough. I was thinking we were going to put SP2 on a separate level.
I think that was the
divisive thing.
I think that's a cop out.
Oh man,
I think it is one product. It is one product that they updated over the lifespan of their support.
But they stopped development on the next operating system to go back and fix XP.
Was that Longhorn?
Yeah, that
Is
was
that what Longhorn was? So that's not okay.
Longhorn was 3 things. They stopped and started twice, and then finally released Windows Vista.
Okay, that's because I always thought Longhorn was just the code name for Vista.
It was
right, but I didn't realize there were other aspects there.
So
did you ever use one of the previous versions that didn't come out?
They were available.
Huh?
Not legally.
And were those the things that had like WinFS?
Yeah, those were. I don't know that they ever shipped anything with WinFS outside Microsoft.
Okay.
But okay, so the story is they were planning another 18-month to 2-year cadence for whatever followed Windows XP, Longhorn.
Okay.
And then they got midway through and they were like, we can't release this. It's not going to work. Scrap it and start over.
Like it was just bad?
It was, WinFS wasn't working. They were basing the whole thing on having a database file system.
Right.
Which turns out bad idea. The problem was around this time, Windows XP started being Swiss cheese and was hacked mercilessly. So they had to like break off a chunk of team to go back and fix that because they weren't going to have a new operating system. They could just be like, hey, you got to upgrade because your old one's a piece of shit. So like they were,
wow.
It's the classic. You have a beater car that you have to keep putting money into, so you can't afford to buy a new car.
Right.
Like that's what Microsoft was doing with billions of dollars.
Except in your analogy, there is no better car.
Yeah.
In this example, Car 2 has not been released yet. It is having a lot of problems.
That's exactly right.
In R&D,
everything is Yugos.
Like you were driving a Yugo and there was no Mercedes to go purchase.
Ford had announced the Pinto.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like okay, let's roll back to XP.
Okay.
So XP comes out late 2001.
Late 2001. It's pretty good. Performance is good.
Is SP1 just not worth noting?
SP1 was just like
just whatever. SP2 is the one that really
it's like new version of Internet Explorer.
And when did SP2 come out?
SP2.
What I'm asking is like, what is the window?
That is a good question. Let's see.
The
window on Windows.
XP being bad before it got fixed.
Service Pack 2 was released August of 2004.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Geez. So like almost 3 years.
3 years. Two years and 10 months.
That's a long time for Windows XP to be bad.
So, in fairness, Windows XP was probably only bad for the last year of that.
Oh, like because that's when the attacks really started ramping up.
That's when the attacks started getting bad.
Okay.
They did add a firewall. It wasn't very good. Like you couldn't use it and play games and stuff like that, as I recall.
Okay.
It had ClearType, Windows XP. ClearType's pretty good.
Wait, were we talking SP2 here?
This is just XP.
Okay.
SP2. It's also the first one that was segmented. The first commercial consumer one, so you could buy the Home or the Pro.
Oh, so I thought you said 2000 had that.
2000, but that was like
enterprise
and server stuff, so that doesn't count.
Okay, sure.
So SP2 added WPA encryption
for Wi-Fi.
Usability improvements for Wi-Fi. It added the Wi-Fi networking interface, so you could click on something and it wasn't like part of the driver; it's part of Windows XP now. Partial Bluetooth support. And various improvements to security systems.
Did they actually abstract out like the sort of user?
Well, they added UAC essentially.
Well, that's separate, right? Or did that also include?
No, that's
are there under? Well, I guess what I'm asking is, are there under the hood elements to UAC that are not apparent?
Yes. So they couldn't just tack it on. They had to change how the kernel works.
Okay, because the front-facing aspect of UAC is just the thing that people probably just get annoyed with when it pops up and says, "Hey, do you really want to do this?"
Yeah, but they had to change the way the main OS worked.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
So that the software couldn't just run regardless of whether you pressed yes or not.
I see. Okay, so they basically rebuilt the entire structure of the kind of user mode.
And if you don't know what UAC is that thing that pops up when you try to install a new program on Windows.
What does it stand for? User account control?
User account control,
yeah.
And it pops up and says, hey, this is saying this is asking to install some stuff. Do you want to install this? And you have to click
anything
yes.
that tries to make changes to what they consider the system.
Exactly.
Pops that warning, right? Anything
outside of your user folder, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So they released new media. They patched some ActiveX stuff so that it was less, so that you had to manually click that because that was a vector for infection. Firewall was turned on by default. And raw socket support was removed, which stopped the zombie machine problem, the problem with Windows XP and 2000 was that infected Windows XP machines could infect other unpatched Windows XP machines without a user doing anything.
Okay.
If they were directly on the internet, which all of them were at the time because it was 2001, 2002. So, like, at some point, all these zombie botnets and stuff, like the early botnets, were on all these unpatched Windows XP machines, and it was a nightmare. It was really bad.
It's crazy to me that what must have been the biggest company in the world at the time, right? Like probably
It was like
or right up there.
Biggest tech company for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Exxon and Shell and BP and stuff are probably bigger.
It seems like an insane level of malpractice to ship a product with it is that vulnerable.
Well, it's just computers. It's not real stuff. It doesn't matter.
I guess.
Nobody uses these for anything real. It's just like, your accounting software will be jacked up for a little bit.
I guess this is the benefit of hindsight talking, that it seems crazy to me now. Like, obviously, nobody at the time knew what was going on.
Well,
but like, it seems like they should have known. They should have had some expectation of this.
I mean, I'm sure in 10 years or 15 years, when the people that were working on this stuff all are retired and start writing books, we'll find out that there were people in there screaming bloody murder.
I don't know what it says about me, but I would read a stack of books about the development of various Windowses.
God, I keep hoping Sinofsky will write the Longhorn book that I want to read.
Yeah.
So yeah, like they knew, but it hadn't been a problem yet.
Okay, is this kind of a like security through obscurity sort of thing of just like nobody is doing these things, so nobody can attack them?
Well, probably. And then they also, so the cultural change that happened with XP was they went from backwards compatibility above all to security first, then everything else.
With SP2?
Between XP and SP2.
Okay, sure.
So if you think about, like, they didn't do the UAC stuff, they didn't do the firewall on by default because it jacked up backwards compatibility for stuff that predated Windows NT,
sure,
and 2000,
sure.
So they had to make that institutional change. But yeah, like it was a real problem for Microsoft. Also, I think they probably thought they'd get another version of Windows out before everybody was connected to the internet all the time.
Okay,
would be my guess.
Because I guess if they on their previous 18-month release cadence or so, it's like, oh, people won't have time to be super vulnerable on this version before we make them buy a new version. Yeah,
at that point they had 2 Windowses on 2-year release cadences. So if they move all those teams together and put them on 2 giant teams on 1 2-year release cadence, everything that I read in the Mythical Man month teaches me that they should get that Windows out twice as fast. Of
course, yeah, that's exactly how that works. Right?
Didn't work that way. Okay, so if we're combining post SP2 and pre SP2, oh man, this is also when Windows XP Tablet Edition came out and Media Center. This is when they were doing all sorts of weird stuff with Windows, man.
Yeah. Okay, it introduced a lot of the sort of modern features and structure that we expect from Windows.
Mm-hmm.
It was a insanely insecure mess for 3 years.
Also, probably the most popular, with a bullet, the most popular version of Windows for a really long time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like maybe ever? I don't know.
No, at this point, 2010 has probably caught up, or 7
now. Sure.
Yeah. It was supported until 2014.
Okay, this is terrible, but do you have a screenshot of Windows XP?
Yes.
Of the interface, the default UI.
This is Luna.
I want to make sure.
OS 10 was called Aqua. This was Luna.
You're right. That is what I thought it was.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not mixing up XP and 7. Because, you know what? 7
has the circle.
The rounded.
Yeah, they got rid of the start button.
I don't like that either.
What?
I was very particular about my UI.
God, Brad, you're one of those guys.
I mean, I was installing weird third-party theme stuff. Like I was making my Windows look like OS 10 for a long time.
If you want to make your Windows look really cool and crash a lot, it's a great way to do that.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like the look of XP or 7, but okay. So I think XP is ugly. It did a lot of important stuff. It was also a mess.
So you're putting it. So where does that put it? Where does that land it for you?
That's a lot of hot and cold.
Yeah, that's up and down. No matter where we put this, people are going to be upset.
At the same time, it sounds insane to say Windows 2000 was better than XP.
Look, I once did a magazine article with the 500 most important pieces of technology of all time, and we put USB at number 1. So I'm no stranger to controversy.
Yeah.
You know what? I think you made a good case. If we're bundling in post SP2, which made Windows XP good again, I think it has to be number 1.
Wow, really?
Probably, yeah.
Even with all the security headache just seems like such a huge knock against it.
I mean, well, what's going to be number 1 if not Windows XP? You going to put Windows 7 at number 1?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
That circle that you hate?
We haven't gotten there yet. We'll figure that out.
What about Windows 10? It's definitely not going to be Windows 8.
We'll figure that out.
I'm foreshadowing.
It feels like XP should be over 2000, but under 98.
Oh, you think we need to reorder the list?
And yet that is currently impossible on our list.
Huh. You could do a pointer.
I don't know.
You think Windows 98 is better than 2000? I could see that.
I don't know.
Performance, man. We didn't talk about performance last week. Those benchmark numbers.
No, I don't think that.
They're damning.
I don't think that at all.
15, 20% performance hit on Windows 2000.
Man, this is tough.
You didn't have that many frames to give up back then.
No, you really didn't.
Going from 70 to 60. I mean, of course, a human cannot see anything faster than 24 frames a second.
No, definitely.
According to the science of the time.
I did that little web app. It proved that.
Yeah. I would be okay with moving Windows 98 up to the number 1 slot tentatively.
I don't know.
And then putting Windows XP.
Now that you say that, I was more excited about Windows 2000 than I was XP.
Well, I mean, that's right.
But
you got DirectX, real DirectX, 5.5, 5.1.
XP is like ugly, and
XP looked like the future. It's not ugly. It's optimistic.
What do we got? We got 2098.
2098 and then NT4. I think XP has to be in the number 1 slot right now.
That's crazy to me. I was going to say like number. I could actually, now that I think about it again, I would say I would put it at like number 3.
Behind 98?
Yeah.
Wow.
That security stuff just really eats at me.
You know what? You're right. You're right.
To be honest.
I can cave on this.
Let's
put it at 2. But you know, by that argument, Windows 2000 just as insecure as XP.
Yeah, but it wasn't exposed to. It wasn't like as much of a threat surface, I guess.
Do I need to tell you about getting the letter from the ISP that was like, we're going to turn off your DSL?
But how many people actually experienced that at the time?
I didn't. 50%.
Like it was a less dangerous internet at the time.
It was a less dangerous internet.
Is the thing. So I've got the NAS, and I've dumped hard drive after hard drive on there.
Yeah.
Windows Defender prompted me to do a virus scan of like my big NAS volume.
Oh boy.
For some reason, I forget what it was. It flagged something.
Yeah, it's lousy with 90s malware.
And yeah, like so it scanned. And again, I've just got directory after directory of crap I should just delete. But like it's so it's so time consuming to go through all that stuff that I'd rather just let it sit there. You know what? There might be something in there.
Let me tell you about my solution for this problem. In my garage on the shelf above my desk, where if there's an earthquake and I'm sitting at the workbench in there, it will literally kill me. There's a box with every hard drive I've ever owned.
But what's the point of why did I build the NAS if I can't put every piece of data that I have on it? That's the whole thing. You know, like that thing has paid dividends because like when it came up on the Bombcast that there was that spreadsheet file that we used at GameSpot to.
That's where you got it?
Yeah, dude. Like when that came up.
Okay.
I remembered the name of the spreadsheet. And I just hopped on my share volume and I just searched for scorecalc.xls.
Oh my God.
And it came right up.
That's so good.
Like it's been really cool. Like I stumbled into some .tivo files.
Oh yeah.
If you can believe it.
I have .tivo files.
Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what the process was, but I guess you could.
You had a Python script that you would pull them off of the.
I feel like this
predates
Python.
You the old way you did it was they had a desktop application.
I think that's what
you had to pay for. It was $25.
That might be what it was.
And you could copy stuff over, and it was like an MPEG-2 video file that took up a ton of space.
Yeah, but they were huge. But I found some old .tivo files of like local news reports from back home of my grandfather flying to DC as part of, I think it was called Honor Air. It was a program to get World War II vets.
That's awesome.
Up to see the new memorial, like while they still could.
That's amazing.
And I had no idea I even had that stuff. Like that's why I have this giant repository because I've just got like years and years of just stuff.
Your hoarding is paid off.
Most of it is crap, but occasionally you find some very sentimental gem in there like that. But anyway, Defender prompted this scan, and I was like, okay, it says it's probably going to take 2 hours to scan.
Yeah, terabytes.
Eight different directories called old desktop with like one or more exclamation marks in front of it.
I at least put, when I copy the old desktop folder, I at least put the date on it. Now.
I should. Well, luckily, all the date modified stamps.
You can't trust that stuff. That's not going to hold.
They're pretty accurate.
Okay.
Date created, the time created, you can't trust.
Yeah,
because those will get updated when you
copy it to the new drive.
From drive to drive. But the date modified, by and large, has been very accurate. Anyway, all of the junk that I had from around the window of XP, like around that time period. And because I didn't run Vista, that probably was extended a couple extra years.
Oh yeah,
right?
You probably went all the way through.
Like I probably used XP. How long did you use XP for? Like 5 years?
I used it until Vista came out, and then I had to switch to Vista because of work.
Like I tried Vista, and I was like, man, no,
that was the right choice.
I think I formatted and went back to XP. Point being, I used XP for a long time.
Service Pack 3 came out in 2008.
Wow,
you could have been using XP when I started tested.
I might have been. When did Windows 7 come out?
Well, we're not there yet.
Well, no, but I mean, I need to know. Like, I probably went straight from XP to 7, if I'm not mistaken.
That would be that was the normal
Like
path.
I'm just trying to put an end date on my XP usage here.
Windows 7 came out in 2009.
Oh wow.
End of 2009.
Okay, so yeah, like I may well have been using XP. Anyway, like very long story short, Defender probably popped 8 or 10 different files.
Well, that was also
using XP?
Napster time. Like like you run Napster and LimeWire and all that stuff, downloading God knows what from God knows where.
But it was 100%. Like I said, it was a couple of keygens for like fucking WinZip or Nero or whatever I had. It was some of that stuff that you would use to like edit OS files to get like your custom OS 10 theme in there. There was an ASP file.
Oh, those are always good.
I had like saved some web page.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was, but I had saved some web page and it found a virus in an ASP or an ASPX. I forget which one.
Well, and like also Word docs were lousy with stuff by that point too.
Right. So that was
maybe a little
like
earlier.
I felt like kind of skeezed out when it ran the scan and found like all this stuff in all these XP era files that I had lying around.
Well, I mean, the nice thing is Windows Defender knows what that is, so you're totally good.
Oh yeah. I mean, it cleaned it, but I'm just saying like XP was kind of a rough.
It was a dark time.
Period.
It was a dark time for Windows. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
I would put it at like number 3.
Man, I think it's got to be above 98.
Okay, fine. All right, I'm okay with that.
This is the kind of caving I like. Yeah, whatever. Let's move on. I'm going to put with SP2.
Okay. Yeah.
If it was without SP2, I'd put it above like Windows 3.1 probably.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. Next up on our long storied history of Windows is Longhorn.
Oh boy. So it was codenamed Longhorn all the way up to release?
That I don't know about, but that's what we always called it at Maximum PC.
I just want to make sure those aren't totally separate products.
It was called Longhorn for a long time.
Okay.
This was
like 06, right?
07, January 30, 2007.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they missed the holiday 2006 even after taking 5 years. Holy cow! You could get it on January 30, 2007. This one is one of the first ones I downloaded, and we of course had it early because I did the review of this too. I was still at Maximum PC then. Okay, so here's the stuff that they did that was good. It had UAC from the beginning. UAC worked better than it did in Windows XP, but it's still not great. The new or changed features list. They had Arrow, which was the transparent.
Yeah.
This was the first 3D rendered desktop.
Right. Yes, 3D accelerated.
Yeah, 3D accelerated desktop.
Elements in the desktop. Yeah. I kind of liked the look of Arrow.
I liked the smoked glass Arrow.
Yeah, yes.
I didn't like the blue Arrow.
Oh, were those both in the shipping?
Yeah, you could switch back and forth between them. Just so you can remember, that is what it looked like.
Yeah, I kind of liked that look.
This is basically, I guess the current Windows menu is a little different because it has all the lame tiles. This is the one that I liked. This is the one. This UI lasted from Windows 7. Arrow lasted from Windows 7, Windows Vista, and Windows 7.
Oh, this same.
It was the same basic design.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Windows 8 they changed to the tiles.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
It was 5 years after XP came out.
What was bad about Vista? Like I feel like that's
it was slow.
Cut to the chase.
It was really slow
because everybody hates Vista.
It was tremendously slow.
Was it
and
really
crashy?
Okay. Oh yeah. It was like straight up unstable, right?
It was the driver model was unstable.
Okay.
So like when they build a Windows, they have to lock the driver model probably a year and a half before the actual OS is done. And as I understand, I don't know if this is true or not, but what I've always heard is that didn't happen in the time frame that it should have. So vendors were writing drivers for targets that were still moving.
Okay.
So that they could release there's tens of thousands of devices that have to have drivers written for them. And Epson isn't going to write them for all the ancient printers. So somebody at Microsoft does it. And anyway, stuff was crashy.
You're right. I completely forgot that you would get like the XP driver or the Vista driver, right?
Yeah.
Like they actually split that stuff out.
That was one of the splits.
Yeah.
So it used DMI instead of a display manager. It had a new interface for the 3D render for the desktop renderer because of the 3D rendered desktop, which meant that if you didn't have a good 3D accelerator that supported all the right stuff, which, as I recall, the most common Intel integrated graphics didn't support the good render model. So it was slow.
Great.
Like moving windows around was slow.
Great.
GDI went away basically. It was still kind of emulated or something, but GDI is what
that was the old display. Draw.
It's what drew Windows from Windows 3.0 on up to Windows Vista.
Right.
It required a shitload of memory.
It was a clunker, is what you're saying.
It was
a lemon.
Look, It was a 1970s car.
Okay.
It was like a 70s Oldsmobile.
Okay.
Like it got 8 miles to the gallon.
Okay.
It had a really big, like nice power steering and power windows.
You could kind of make it brute force what you wanted to do if you really stuck with it.
Yeah, but like not a good car.
Yeah.
Like maybe the doors didn't close all the way, right? It's kind of what like if you got the convertible and you didn't take it through, you washed it by hand. You didn't take it through the automatic car wash.
Okay.
Because you'd get a shower with your car wash.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I don't think this is controversial. I think this is probably the worst version of Windows.
Okay. Yeah. Like what's currently, ME is currently at the bottom. Right?
Yeah. ME is at the
functional.
bottom. ME worked.
ME works.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
This was actively bad.
Yeah.
And they had to pull features, right? Like they pulled features that you wanted, like the file system stuff. Like one of the things that people like, remember, you used to not be able to search your hard drive.
Right. God.
Or search the contents. You could search for file names,
right,
but not the contents of the files.
Right. Because they weren't indexing anything back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were gonna put all the files into databases and make them all like XML based stuff, so you could search through it all, like Google. And then they had to pull that. So then they put an indexer in that searched, and that ate a bunch of resources and was slow and didn't ever give you the thing you were looking for. This was bad.
All right.
It's a bad OS. Boo.
Down the drain with Vista.
It's so bad that they ended extended support after only 6 years.
Wow.
It launched in 2007 and they ended extended support 10 years in 2017. Yeah.
I actually went to some Microsoft event for this thing. I got invited. I had a friend that worked at Intel.
Yeah.
And the deal was you drag your computer to the South Bay, your desktop.
And they'd install it for you?
So this was pre-release. This was 6 months before it came out, maybe a little bit more. They wanted a broader base of testing data. They wanted more hardware combinations to generate data from. So the deal was, if you drag your computer down to this Microsoft campus or wherever the event was in San Jose, let us install whatever version of Vista we want on there and run like diagnostic and profiling stuff and gather data. Then we will send you a free copy of Vista Ultimate.
Wow.
When it comes out, which
that's
totally
pretty
made
good deal
on.
Yeah. Just what you wanted.
Except it was Vista.
Well.
I spent like a whole Saturday going to this thing. And again, like they basically overwrote your whatever OS you had installed.
What?
I think I had gotten to the point where I was like, I need a format anyway. If it's bad, I'll just trash it.
Yeah, this was during a time.
Like I burned a whole Saturday to get the ultimate copy of like the worst Windows ever made.
Okay, so here's the one good thing that happened with Windows Vista. If you had a 64-bit processor, you could go above 4 gigabytes of memory.
Oh.
So there was a Windows XP 64-bit edition.
Okay.
Driver support for it was bad. It was not something normal people used. You used it if you had like some sort of industrial equipment or something hooked up.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Okay. Vista was the first proper 64-bit.
Yep. But you want to know what they did to mess it up?
What?
Oh, also this was when netbooks were a thing.
Okay.
So you get a netbook with the Windows Vista Starter Edition.
Ooh.
Only supported a gigabyte of RAM.
Ooh.
So they siloed RAM support, maximum RAM limits by the SKU of Windows you bought. So if you bought Home Basic, you could only support up to 8 gigs of RAM. If you bought Home Premium, you'd get up to 16 gigs of RAM.
Holy shit!
And if you bought Business, Enterprise, or Ultimate, you got 128 gigs of RAM.
Insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oops.
Huh.
Oops.
Wow. I bet the hardware makers loved that.
Yeah, they did. It was an upsell. They got a cut. I mean, in fairness, I don't think having more than 8 gigs or 16 gigs of RAM was probably much of a problem for people then.
No, definitely not. I mean,
but
that's how much I have now.
Yeah.
13 years later. Yeah. But that's terrible. That's just ridiculous. Yeah.
Oops. Also, Windows Vista Standard and Basic, I want to say you didn't get the fancy, on Basic, you didn't get the fancy the translucency on the UI.
Huh.
It doesn't use DWM.
Seems like a weird thing to omit, but okay.
Oh, no, sorry, that's the visual styles. That's a different thing. They just call them the same thing. Anyway, Vista sucks. Move on.
All right.
Windows 7.
So January 07 for Vista.
Yeah.
When did an 09 for
Perfect 2-year cadence, July 22nd, 2009, RTM. It became generally available in October.
Okay.
So they hit holiday.
Wait, late 09?
09.
So it was close to 3 years.
Close to 3 years.
Okay. That's a long time to. Well, like you said, people just kept using XP.
People just kept using XP, yeah. They had to extend the life of XP.
That's why Service Pack 3
That's why Service Pack 3 happened in 2008.
Okay.
It was really good.
Yeah. I remember
it was fast.
I feel like I remember 7 like out of the box was pretty good.
Like the unfortunate thing for Vista And I'm going to be nice to Vista for a minute here, so bear with me. By the time Windows 7 shipped, the driver model had stabilized. People were shipping good drivers.
Okay.
Vista was pretty okay.
Okay.
It wasn't great. Still a little clunky.
Yeah.
But 7, real fast, real nice, real fancy.
Do you know if did 7 pretty much build on all those core technologies of Vista? Like, did it stick with that driver model?
Yeah, DMI and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All the x64 driver model. Windows 7 was x64 default. So if you had with Vista, I think you had to choose 64-bit support.
That was one of my questions, was if that was a manual opt-in or...
I think you had to buy a different version even. Maybe. I think that was the reason people bought Ultimate, is because you got 64 and 32.
Okay.
Whereas with the basics and the home basics, you had to choose which box you got. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like 64-bit choices were part of the purchasing process.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Whereas with Windows 7, they were both on the disk, it defaulted to 64-bit.
That sounds right to me.
And probably you got a thumb drive. I got a thumb drive from Microsoft with Windows 7 on it.
I remember just straight up buying a copy of Windows 7, and I think it came on CD.
You probably could get it on both.
Or DVD, rather.
It might have been an expensive thumb drive. 2009 thumb drives were pretty big.
I also, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that was the first version where Windows got like surprisingly cheap. I'd swear I remember paying like $50 for Windows 7 Home or something like that.
They definitely did that. They definitely did deals for Windows 8. I don't remember on Windows 7.
I swear I remember thinking because before that, Windows was a couple $100 proposition in a lot of cases.
Usually the retail was $200 or $300.
Right. That's why I was willing to go to that event with Microsoft, because I was like, holy shit, I can get the best version of the next Windows for free. Well, I'll give up a Saturday for that.
That Ultimate Edition thing was a real, they charged you like $250, $300 because basically all of the home, the thing that they changed was they took out the home stuff, the stuff that you use for home, like Movie Maker from the business editions, and they wouldn't let you do whole disk encryption, stuff like that on the home versions.
Yeah. Point being, especially if you were a broke college student or whatever, getting the new Windows was there was a pretty high barrier to entry.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure 7 was the one where I looked at the pre-order prices or whatever, and I was like, wait, really? I can get the new Windows for $50? Sure, I'll just buy it. So if that is actually accurate, then I feel like that's a pretty big point in 7's favor.
I can see that. I'm trying to see here's what changed. Features new to Windows 7. I'm just going to go to this article. You got themes on the desktop.
Okay.
You got a desktop slideshow. You got gadgets, which were their version of widgets. Remember widgets? You could get the weather on your desktop and it would just be embedded in there. It was pretty cool. It's the thing people were into. You could customize the wallpaper that's displayed during user login. That was a thing you couldn't do before.
Exciting.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. Libraries. Libraries were the ability to say you had 2 hard drives. You could take 2 hard drives on 2 different drives, 2 folders on 2 different drives that have your pictures, and display them as one big folder.
Huh.
So it's kind of like a symlink, weird symlink.
Yeah, sure.
It had federated search, so you could add web services and other stuff to your search, to the built-in default Windows search, which was pretty good by that point. And the start menu faded in and out. So you got that too.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And it defaulted by linking to the libraries instead of the actual folders on your hard drive, which actually is a negative in my eyes. And the taskbar got rid of the name of the application, so it was just the icon at that point.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And
it saved a lot of space.
And it did the thing where it previewed the windows and all that stuff. You could do Windows plus tab.
Peak? Arrow Peak?
Arrow Peak.
I believe
that's it. That might have
feature.
come in Vista, actually, when I think about it.
Sure.
It was slow in Vista, and you could actually use it in Windows XP.
I mean, that defines 7 to me is...
Peak?
No. What you just said about it was slow in Vista, it was usable in 7.
That is pretty much it.
7 gets a huge boost just by being the functional version of what they tried to do before.
Agreed. Again, a lot of it is because the drivers were finally good by the time people installed 7 for the first time.
Fair.
But yeah, it was definitely clunky.
I mean, if you just look at every Windows before this that had moved to that NT kernel.
That's true.
2000, the hardware support was not there.
Yeah.
It was just very limited support. XP had major ups and downs. Vista was a disaster. 7 was the first one in that whole line that was just this is good out of the box. You can just use this.
Yeah, it just worked.
Yeah. I would straight up put 7 at the top of the list. On that basis alone.
I'm down with that. I'm 100% down with that. It's probably worth mentioning we started down this path because Windows 7 end of lifed 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Right.
The 19th of January.
I remember, maybe this says something about the forums I read and stuff, but I remember seeing people not exactly freaking out, but just going oh, well, okay.
Mournful. I mean, I almost rolled back to Windows. Had I not started VR development when I did, I probably would have rolled back to Windows 7 from early Windows 10. No,
10?
first couple of versions of Windows 10 were pretty rough.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I feel like 7 is around the time that I stopped thinking about Windows so much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it worked well enough in most aspects that you just kind of could ignore it and just do what you needed to do. That's what I'm getting at.
It got out of your way.
Yes,
that's exactly right.
That is the right way to put it. Like 7 was the first version of Windows that just got out of your way and let you just use your damn computer.
Well, and they also added like multi-desktop support.
Okay.
So you have virtual desktops. Yeah. That might have been in Vista too, but probably too slow to use. They added they stole some of the good things from OS 10, like dragging the window to the top of the screen and making it maximized, moving it off to the right and it taking up half the screen and all that stuff. They added a bunch of Windows key shortcuts, making the Windows key useful for once. So like that's where Windows key plus P to switch displays,
display output,
and all of that stuff came in.
Window X for a command prompt.
Yeah.
Window L to lock.
Windows X for command prompt might have been there for. I think X and L were around for a while before that. They're not on this list.
I mean, for years, the Windows key was just the start menu key to me until I actually learned all that stuff.
Well, I mean, I use it. Useful. I hit the start menu and then type the thing that I'm looking for. Yeah,
but it does a lot of stuff now. Like I would argue that Windows key tab is more useful than Alt tab.
Yes, absolutely.
So, stuff like that. But anyway,
although Alt tab is now the same as Windows key. Anyway,
no, they're different.
Really?
Well, if you run multi-monitor, they're different.
Oh yeah, I don't run multi-monitor.
If you've got two monitors, then Window tab breaks the windows out by which monitor they're on.
Added multi-touch support too for a tablet team.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I would put 7 at the top of the list.
I think I've already done it. I'm there.
It is like the first truly good version of Windows in my mind. Like thinking back over the long history, it only took them 7 tries.
Well, there were good Windows before that, but it was the one that like out of the box was.
That's
good.
what I remember.
I think that's the thing.
Without reservation, you could say this is good.
Yeah,
like without caveat.
So now you can fast forward 3 short years. Okay. It's October 2012.
God, really? Did they get to 8 that fast?
Yep. Well, like, you know.
Like I guess I
moved from the world of print to the web during this time frame.
Yeah,
it's a big 3 years for me.
I don't know. I guess I'm in such a different mindset now about operating systems, which is like if it works, then just leave it alone.
Yeah.
So to me, thinking back on that is like, wow, you got it really right with 7, and then you like rushed into making another version of Windows that was not good.
You know, the other thing about 7 that's really good is it's the first one that I was able to go for a long time without having to reformat constantly.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I mean.
Like I probably used that default install of Windows 7 until we started to test it. So it was like 2 years.
Totally. Like my reformat schedule went from months to years around that time.
Yeah.
Because I remember back in the day, you would reinstall Windows like 2-3 times a year sometimes.
Basically, anytime something went even the slightest bit wrong.
Yes, if the things went bad enough, like the easiest, like rather than try to figure it out, like it was easier to just format.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Okay.
Are Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 the same OS?
Ooh.
You want to know what the differences are?
I remember it was some big interface thing, right?
Yeah, like Windows 8.
Did they pull out some of the tablet crap?
Yeah, they rolled back. So Windows 8.1, you didn't have to.
Like, did you get the start menu back? Like, that's the big question.
You got the start menu back.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that was the big one.
Oh my God, I completely suppressed all memory of Windows 8.
Yeah, the start screen.
That start screen. Oh my God, that was horrible. How did that make it to production?
Well, tablets were the future.
Well, of course, but like, how do you not leave behind the vast bulk of your legacy customers?
Look, everybody's going to go out and buy new PCs. That's what they do every time a new version of Windows comes out, Brad. It's not going to be a problem. They're just going to get touchscreen PCs, which are not actually on the market yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen. And also, fuck desktop people. There are a lot of podcasts about me yelling on about this. This was this is one of those ones that they stopped inviting me to the preview events because I started asking questions.
You got blacklisted?
I didn't get blacklisted, but I think they got tired of me asking dumb questions. It's like, hey, does anybody here think this is a good idea? Wow. At one point, I was in one of those it was one of those casual round tables.
Sure.
And I was sitting there, I was like, look at how much I have to move the mouse to launch an application.
That's amazing.
Okay, so if you don't know what Windows 8 did, they replaced the start menu, which was a tight, like bottom quarter to eighth of your monitor, where you could like launch your apps, launch do the thing that you need the PC for. And they replaced it with a thing that takes over the whole screen, has, instead of having like 32 by 32 pixel icons,
Like nice little efficient use of space.
like 200 by 200 squares.
Yeah, like massive tiles. Was this around the time of like Windows Phone and the Metro design?
This was Metro
design and like big. And I kind of
did it on the Xbox too.
I kind of like the look of some of that stuff. I feel like it's kind of clean.
It looked great,
right? But
not usable at all.
Hijacking your entire monitor every time you wanted to launch a program, like come on.
Well, and worse than that, there was like a multiple frame delay while it loaded the start screen every time you hit the Windows key.
Yes.
So you'd click it, and then in the old days, the start menu would just be there. It would just poop, like 3 frames.
Can I ask real quick?
Yes,
are you one of the people who will go into, I forget what the exact dialogue is called? It's a legacy dialogue. It's been there for.
I don't take out the transitions.
You know,
if that's what you're asking.
I turn off every animation, every window transition and animation.
I like a good animation.
Like I just want when I minimize a window, I want in one frame for it to disappear.
I'm going to make you really sad. You know, on OS 10, you know, when you minimize an application, you have the option to do like 3 or 4 different effects when you minimize.
Yeah,
I do the genie one. That
I don't minimize. I don't minimize on OS 10.
What?
I got a little third-party app that you can bind key combos to mouse buttons.
Okay.
And I bound one of my extra mouse buttons to Command H,
which kills it.
It's hide.
Oh, hide.
It hides every window associated with that app because the OS 10 model, which I think is superior to Windows, probably is to group all windows by application.
Well, they did that starting with Windows 7.
Well, kind of, but you still can't. There's no minimize every window associated with this process in Windows.
You could do arrow shake, where you take the window you want and shake it.
I'm not shaking,
and then all the other ones go away.
I refuse to shake.
Oh man, arrow shake's really good stuff. Windows 8. Wikipedia says Windows 8 was released to a mixed critical reception.
Yeah. Let me ask. Well, I don't know if it's too early to ask this. Worse reception, Vista or 8?
Vista.
You think so? Okay. Like Vista was bad on the technology end.
Vista was slow and shitty.
8 was bad on the interface end.
8 was not good to use. Man, that's tough.
Yeah.
I think Vista got worse reviews.
Okay.
I definitely gave Vista worse. I didn't.
Okay.
I was tested, so I wouldn't have given a number to 8.
I guess
so there's no way for me to quantify whether 8 was worse than Vista. It's
I guess
impossible.
bad interface you can find ways to work around. But
but
if the actual core of the operating system is broken, then fuck everything.
Stardock made bank selling put your start menu back on Windows 8 application.
Sure, I bet.
A year later, in October 2013, they released 8.1, which brought the start menu back.
Yeah. I feel like I remember it still wasn't quite what you wanted.
Here's the thing that was great. I forgot about this. On Windows 8, the desktop was an app. So the desktop it launched the Windows Unified App Model thing.
Okay.
The thing that was like, hey, you can write one application and run on your Windows PC or on your Windows Phone or on the Xbox. You'll be able to do it everywhere. Yeah. One application on all machines. It's going to be great, guys. And also, the only way you're going to be able to get them is through the Windows Store, where you're going to have to log in with a Microsoft account, and you'll be able to charge money for the applications that everybody just expects to be free now.
You don't sound at all bitter or like you're speaking from experience.
And Windows users, Microsoft, just to be clear, Microsoft watched Apple do this with OS 10 and the Mac App Store, and they're like, "Shit, we can do this too. We have we can make a lot of money." And then it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
So, and the difference is, instead of saying, hey, we're going to have an API that lets us hook into the store and sell apps on the store, they said, hey, we're going to write this new extremely limited API that only lets apps run in full screen. Remember that? Because that's it. They only let apps run in full screen.
Oh my God.
It's like they saw the iPad and missed the point entirely.
This sounds worse and worse the more you talk about it.
The more I think about it, the angrier I'm getting, just to be clear.
I think you're maybe making a case for Windows 8 at the bottom of this list.
I'm feeling pretty good about that. So yeah,
I thought for sure Vista was a shoe-in for that spot, but
the name of the operating system is Windows, and the whole point was you could run 2 applications at the same time.
Yeah.
And then they were like, nope, big old middle finger to 2 windows at the same time.
Also, this philosophy even bled into parts of like the control panel and stuff like that, like even like system dialogues.
Everything
started being replaced.
Everything was full screen.
Yeah. Wow.
Just to be clear, they replaced the old perfectly functional control panel with a new one, and they still haven't merged those two things together. We still have both of them.
As much as I generally like Windows 10 now, like it's still stuck with some of the crappy legacy aspects of Windows 8.
Yeah. Well, so they built this new app model, this new API, and made the thing that Windows was good at bad.
Right.
Like fundamentally undermined the underpinnings of Windows.
So I feel like maybe the strongest argument for Windows 8 at the bottom of this list is that it was such an incredibly powerful self-own.
Yeah.
Coming out of Windows 7, which we have just established that Windows 7 was the best Windows ever.
Yeah, the best of the best.
And they literally went from the best Windows to arguably the worst.
I'm gonna put this down here tentatively.
And it was a completely unforced error. It was completely an error in judgment.
How were we worried how were we worried we're gonna have it was just gonna list a reverse chronological order list here?
Like Vista had obvious development problems, like it was clearly stuck in like development hell.
Yeah, well,
they couldn't bring it together.
They made some assumptions that turned out to not be right, and by the time and then they had to restart twice.
Whereas, by every indication, Windows 8 is exactly the product they set out to make.
All they had to do with Windows 8 was, like, to make Windows 8 good, all they had to do was have desktop mode and tablet mode. That's it.
Wow. I think Windows 8 has to be at the bottom of the list.
I'm 100% with you. Like, that Metro UI was such a failure that they stopped making the phones.
Yeah.
They stopped using them on the Xbox.
And I liked those phones.
They don't use the Metro on the Xbox anymore, do they?
Really. It's not really, no.
Yeah.
Like the tiles are kind of descended from that look, but it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah. This is a terrible OS.
Yeah. Like they thought it was a do.
They were excited about it.
That's what I'm getting at is like Vista, I'm sure they knew could have been better.
I went to an app over on Potrero Hill or off Potrero in like Utah in the state street names where they were like, guys, we want to talk to you about Metro apps. This is going to be the next big thing. It's going to be huge. And I went up to the person afterwards. I was like, hey, why were all the apps full screen? And they were like, we're not talking about that right now.
Wow.
And yeah, I was like, can you drag stuff from one app to the apps? We're not talking about that now.
Yeah.
Where's the menu bar? How do I print? We're not talking about that now. There'll be a share sheet for that. And I was like, what the fuck is a share sheet?
The fact that they did this to themselves, I feel like pushes this to the very bottom.
I think it's also the first one that integrated Bing, but I'm not sure about that. So
I'll let that one slide.
Yeah, Bing, but least of its crimes.
I think 8 may have been the same situation as Vista, where I used it for a little while, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to reinstall 7.
Yeah, that seems right.
Like I think that's what I ended up doing there.
When I remember you guys asked me, what should we install Windows 8? Because they were giving it away for a little while.
Yes, I think somehow I got a copy from Microsoft of that.
Yeah, like if you had a live Windows 7 key,
maybe that's what
you could upgrade to 8 on the spot because they wanted people on Metro because they were going to make all their money by selling apps.
You're right. That's what it was.
And it's like, don't.
Wait, does that mean that I invalidated my Windows 7 key by turning it into a Windows 8 key?
If you installed Windows 8, you probably did. You can install Windows 8 as trialware too.
Maybe I did that.
So this is Windows 7, I think, was the first one that they were confident enough in their activation stuff. Just to be clear, Windows 98 was the first one that introduced activation.
Yeah.
Or OSR2 was, which probably is a bump it down anyway. So they added you could install Windows without having the key on you. So you weren't hosed if you lost your sticker or whatever.
Right.
You could install it and then deal with the key later, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to figure out what the user interface tweak was in 8.1. I actually used this the whole time, but I think that they made the desktop not a Windows app.
Yeah, I don't remember much about 8.1, but I think I did move to it once it gave me a start menu again.
And they put no. You know what? They just put the start button back.
Oh.
That was the only thing.
Well, you weren't opening a full start screen anymore, right?
God, I forgot. So
I can't remember.
Windows 8. Yeah, I think you still had the start screen.
What?
On 8.1. They don't say anything about putting the start menu back. I think the start menu came back with Windows 10.
Huh.
I think what they did was they put the start button back on the taskbar because before, to open the start menu on a desktop machine that didn't have a button on the monitor to press to open the start screen, you had to just click on nothing in the lower left corner of the screen.
I think you're totally
on the vast majority of computers running desktop or mobile Windows 10, Windows 8.
I think that is totally right.
Oh my God, what a shit show.
Yeah, that's bad.
Okay, Windows 8 definitely bottom of the list.
Yeah.
I don't think 8.1 should be. I don't think we should distinguish 8.1 by putting it one notch above.
No, I think it's all
bundled up in one.
It's a complete wash.
This brings us to Windows 10.
Okay.
Of which we've now had like 6 major releases, I think. 8 major releases.
Came out 2015 or 16, something like that. I'm going to guess.
Windows 10 was released in July of 2015.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. It's been with us for a while.
Also the fastest time from RTM to release, I think, of all of these. Because it RTM'd on July 15th and you could buy it for sale because it was a download on the 29th.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know when this happened. I don't know if this is strictly a Windows 10 thing, or maybe 8 was doing it too. But and granted, technology just moved this way, but their willingness to just let you download and make an installer.
That's the thing I'm talking about. That happened with Windows 7.
Oh, it did.
You could download the installers. You didn't.
Oh, when you mentioned USB stick, I thought you were saying they sold USB sticks with.
Well,
it.
they did.
Okay,
but I think they also had.
have they been letting you do it for that long?
Well, so you could download an ISO all the way for a long time.
Yeah,
but then you had to know how to burn an ISO onto a CD-ROM or onto a thumb drive.
Right.
It was a little bit of a process.
Now it's just the media creation tool.
Yeah, that thing's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
So
also the speed of installing Windows, especially in the age of like USB 3 and NVMe drives and stuff like that, it's insane. You can have a functional Windows install in like 5 minutes now.
It is very nice.
It's really cool.
They provided a free upgrade for this.
Okay, from 8 to 10.
Yeah, they kind of forced you to upgrade from 8.
Okay,
which was a kindness, I think, but people were upset about that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They've released. I'm trying to figure out how many releases we've had at this point.
Yeah.
People weren't super keen on it.
Yeah, I don't remember the initial impression very well.
It was a little up and down. People were like, oh, they're rolling back on this other stuff, and it was a little. The driver model changed a little bit, so it was a little bit unstable. But it was fine.
It had a start menu out of the box, right?
Start menu out of the box, yes.
Okay.
It rolled back to desktop. If you were on a desktop machine, you got the desktop UI that you were accustomed to. It was squarer and had tiles and all that stuff, which it still has.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it looked like Windows. It looks like, I'm looking for the releases, the initial release, and then they had pretty much releases every 6 months with a few skips.
They've kind of gone to like this OS 10 model, right? Of like Windows 10 is just the Windows for now on.
Yeah.
For a very long time.
That is the model, yes.
Probably another 5 years or something.
I would say it may continue being the current model for the future. Yeah.
The Windows of record.
I mean, the version numbers are basically just the year and the month.
Right.
So it's like 1809, 1904 or whatever. 1903.
And colloquially, they refer to them as like the I'm trying to think. Like the spring update.
Oh yeah, it's
like
usually
the way they message them to users. It's like, oh, it's the Windows 10 spring update. I think they've changed that. I forget how they.
Well, so they called them Creators Update for a while. They've tried a bunch of different names.
Yeah, right. Like the naming scheme keeps changing in some confusing ways.
This article is really long. Here we go. Yeah. So the first one was the November update. That was the one in 2015 in November, obviously. Then the anniversary update the next summer.
Right. So yeah, the names were kind of all over the place. It's been a little hard to keep track of that stuff.
Then the Creators Update. Then the Fall Creators Update, which was an update to the Creators Update. Then the April 2018 update, which unsurprisingly shipped in March of 2018. No. I'm sorry. It was not. It was supposed to ship in March of 2018 and ended up shipping on May 8th. So with an initial manual download on April 30th.
Yeah, they've messed up a couple of these updates. There was one that they recalled, I think.
That was October 1903.
Yeah, this was in the last year or two.
Yeah, so October 2018, May 2019, November 2019, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 major updates.
Well, so what is the arc of Windows 10 in your mind?
So the arc is that it was better than Windows 8 on launch.
Yes,
no doubt.
So probably not hard.
Just because it had a start menu, that's all they needed. I feel like Windows 10's pretty good.
Yeah,
like the 6 month to year cadence for minor, I guess they're major updates, is like lets them move more nimbly for new hardware and stuff like that. So like when VR support came on, like that stuff was supported pretty much the moment you could get a headset. NVMe support was really, really quick.
Yeah.
I love that they do the different channels the same way they do in the Xbox, where you can subscribe to an insider build and get betas if you want to try stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Can anybody just opt into that?
Yeah, like if you and for a long time, I don't know if this is still the case. For a long time, if you were on one of the insider rings, you didn't even have to have a paid key. You could just be a beta tester, and they were like, "Thanks for your support
and your telemetry."
And your telemetry, and as a result, now when Windows Update says, "Hey, you're ready," a new version of Windows doesn't come out on the same day for everyone. Like if your machine and my machine have different hardware in them, we'll get them when they're pretty confident that the hardware in our machines will work.
So I came to realize that. I know people that will, because there are ways to force the update.
Yeah.
And I know people who will just very aggressively be like, well, fuck that. I'm not going to wait. Like,
yeah.
I think there's a perception that a lot of people that they're just trying to like, I don't know, minimize like bandwidth usage or like reduce load is what I mean on not giving it to everybody at the same time. But yeah, like I came to realize it's like, oh, they're not pushing this update to me because there's something about my system that is not going to go well if I install it.
That's exactly
So
it.
I have very much started like following or waiting for it to come down.
Well, and there's things that push you into a higher tier. Like if you go in and manually press Windows Update to manually download security patches at some point,
yeah,
that's something that they take as a sign that you're interested in taking stuff a little bit faster.
Interesting.
But like, yeah, if you have like a capture card or something, some novel hardware in your machine, then they'll wait until enough people in the insider ring have tried it that they feel like it's going to be work successfully for you. Now they have had some releases that like did things like, delete user data.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yes.
They've had to roll back some updates because of stuff like that. So it's not been flawless. I think this is pretty good. I don't know that it's as good as Windows 7.
I will say the biggest knock for me against Windows 10 is that it just still is having a kind of this identity crisis, which again is like a legacy of 8.
Yeah.
But it's like there are effectively 2 control panels in Windows 10. There's like the modern Metro-ish, like tile-based touch-looking thing.
Yeah.
But every so often you're going to get shunted off to like a dialogue that's been there for 15 years because there's some functionality in that new system panel that doesn't exist.
Yeah, your disk management interface is still the same as it was in Windows 2000.
Like the literal old control panel, like the XP style control panel is still in there, and occasionally you need to use it because the new stuff doesn't do what you need.
Well, and sometimes you need to go back to like the computer management thing, which was the control panel for NT in 2000.
Yes. Like they've done a pretty bad job of unifying all that stuff.
Yeah,
like even on the interface side, just the what do you call them? Like what's
like
the design terminology? Yeah, for like the X, the close window button and stuff like that.
Window crumb is what that's called.
Like all that stuff feels like a little bit just janky and like not very well thought out to me.
Yeah, and like there's a thing that happened when they redesigned the UI for touch, where they kind of split the difference instead of making like separate UI for touch and separate UI for mouse and keyboard. And they fixed a lot of that when they went to 10, but they didn't fix all of it.
Right. Like it looks better, but there's just something like a little bit unattractive about it to me.
The other thing that is uncomfortable for me about Windows 10 is, it's when they switch to Windows as a service. Okay. And that's good in that they update more frequently than they did before. But it's also bad in that now like Windows is doing shit in the background, like installing Candy Crush because they have a deal with the people that make Candy Crush.
I forgot about all that stuff. I mean, it's like fairly easy to purge that stuff after a new install, but like I'm with you.
But it keeps coming too.
Wait, are you sure you can't just disable it entirely?
No, if you have the enterprise version, you can.
Like, so I'm on Pro. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Candy Crush Saga is still installed on my computer.
Like that stuff is definitely there after a new install. Like you have to go through the start menu and delete 8 or 10 different things that you definitely don't want.
Well, and like I have a Facebook app on here. I didn't put this on here.
Yeah, that sucks. That's terrible. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so I'm not a huge fan of that, just generally speaking.
Yeah. And like the store stuff is okay, but like I don't know. I've had issues with the store not being able to patch or install stuff properly sometimes, and
yeah, the store works great for like the lightweight applications, like a Twitter client. But when you need to install 100 gigs of Gears of War 5,
yes, it can be
maybe not great,
a little rickety. And like now they're rolling out this separate Xbox Store app, and I'm not sure why we need multiple stores and X, Y, and Z. Like
I kind of like having the games all in different places.
I don't know. I mean, there are some things about it that could be better.
But like, and also the fact that the default apps are still the Windows, the Metro apps, whatever they call it. They don't call them Metro anymore. We're going to get yelled at for this, I'm sure. But the tile apps, like the calendar and the mail apps are are tile apps versus real apps.
I think.
Yeah.
Although they open sourced the calculator.
Oh, that's nice.
Like I actually, you know what that is, and I don't know if that's more of a Microsoft thing than a Windows thing, but like all the Windows subsystem for Linux stuff. Are you familiar with that stuff?
Yeah.
Like you can get like a basically functional install of like Debian or Ubuntu.
Yeah, that stuff's cool.
And they're actually working on a new version of that, aptly titled Windows Subsystem for Linux 2. Which
I like that. I'm into that.
Apparently, like the stuff they've got now is very abstracted and like super clunky and slow and not very well thought out.
It's not like a VM. It's just like
the sequel to WSL is apparently like mostly virtualized and like actually a pretty functional Linux install, which is awesome.
That sounds pretty good.
Like, and they bought GitHub. Like this is much broader than just Windows, but like Microsoft kind of like letting their hair down a little bit and kind of getting a little more into the open source world. Like joining the rest of computing is kind of what I'm.
Yeah,
it feels like they're making like a nice effort to like actually integrate with the way that software is developed these days.
Well, one of the things Satya Nadella wanted to do from the beginning was like have everything treated as a service.
Yeah.
and shift revenue appropriately. And I mean, the good side of that is the stuff you're talking about, right? Like they're actually doing the stuff that users want and need.
Right. Like there are GitHub repos for the new terminal and the calculator and stuff.
I'll trade that for having to uninstall Candy Crush every time I do a major update for Windows.
It's a pain, but there are ways to get rid of that stuff.
Here's something I don't like about Windows 10. This is a venue to complain about this. You know how Windows used to blue screen and give you an error message and it'd be like, hey, here's some business that will help you fix your problem.
I know where this is going.
Now it says you get a frowny face.
I hate that frowny face so much.
Yeah, that frowny face is a dick.
I will say in defense of Windows 10, I almost never see a blue screen of any kind. Like,
well, you clearly were not doing VR development in 2015.
No, I'm not working with a bunch of weird hardware that has like maybe shoddy drivers or whatever.
So on that blue screen now is a QR code. And there's an error message. It says like, here's the name of the blue screen, whichever one you get, and a QR code. And you point your phone at the screen and you get the QR code and you're like, oh man, sweet. This is going to take me exactly to the page that fixes my problem. Because why would you put a QR code on the blue screen if it doesn't do that? And no, it takes you to the, hey, so you've had a blue screen page on Microsoft's knowledge base. You're like, well, clearly there's a place here for me to put in the error that I got. So it'll take me to the page. Maybe like the blue screen, the kernel isn't big enough to have a million QR codes. You don't want to blossom that thing out. You want to keep it nice and tight and small. So we'll just have the one QR code and then a page that you can type the exact string in that you have. That's not there either.
Nothing.
It's just a generic. So you've had a blue screen. You might want to call your hardware vendor's support page to get some help with this.
Great.
So for me, that's like, I think that puts it somewhere between like ME and 3.1.
Whoa.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
I think this is a solid number 1 or 2.
Remind me, what's their top like 5 look like right now?
Our list our top 10 right now.
Okay, just want to
the 11 greatest Windowses of all time.
Yes.
Windows 7, number 1. Number 2 is Windows 2000. Number 3 is Windows XP. Number 4 is Windows 98. Number 5 is Windows NT4. Number 6 is Windows 95. Number 7 is Windows 3.1. Number 8 is Windows ME. Unnecessary, but okay. Number 9, Windows Vista. Bad. And number 10 is Windows 8. Offensively bad.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good list.
Yeah. I mean, I like Windows 7 a lot.
Yeah.
But I also like fast updates.
Yeah.
I like that insider business. I like
That
knowing when I hit the update button,
Yeah.
it's not going to hose me probably. Unless it deletes my data that one time that we don't talk about anymore.
Windows 10 is very uneven to me. It's got a lot of good stuff about it, but like we've been saying, there's a lot of drawbacks.
So you're saying if we were talking about the fall creators update, you'd be in. But if we were talking about the creators update, not so much.
First creators update, bad stuff. I don't know if I'm glossing over problems with 7 in my mind or not.
Oh, almost certainly.
Okay, because I feel like my memory of 7 is just pretty smooth sailing.
It was rock solid, man.
Yeah.
Like look, after the Vista debacle, they were like, look, we got to fix this. We got one chance to make this right, or people are going to go buy Macs. Because people were going to buy Macs. Right.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Like people were
2008 is when I bought my first MacBook.
Yeah. Apple was selling more laptops than any PC vendor at that point. So, you got to look at that and you got to think, oh, we got to get this thing under control. Not any PC vendor across all price ranges. In the price ranges where Apple was selling laptops, they were selling more $1,000 laptops than anybody else. I think they were like, well, we got to make it secure. We got to make it fast. We got to make it good. If we don't do that, then we lose.
Yeah.
Our cash cow dies.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think, different priorities with Windows 8. They were trying to open new markets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Badly.
They just made a horrible bet.
Yeah. And Windows 10, they were just trying to recover from Windows 8, but not throw away the new markets.
A lot of what I don't like about Windows 10 is just a trickle down effect of the mistakes they made with 8.
Yeah,
but that's still, it's still in the product, so you have to hold it against it. I feel like in my memory, 7 was a much cleaner experience than 10, but 10 does a lot of cool stuff that 7 didn't. So
I feel like 10 is more good than bad.
Yeah,
like overall,
I can agree with that.
Like look, I can play Xbox games on my PC now.
Yeah,
right. That's pretty cool. I have a touch screen on this laptop.
Yeah,
that's neat,
and it works. I've never used Touch Windows 10. Is it pretty good?
It's exactly what you would expect.
Okay, that's good.
It's a mixed bag.
I do like all that, like you said, like all that rapid support for new hardware. Like it does so much now.
Yeah, stuff just works
generally. Yeah,
unless it deletes your files, which is the downside.
Yeah,
I mean, just to be clear, when you're talking about a piece of software the scale of Windows 10. When they roll out new software and it has a minor bug that affects a tiny percentage of people, it's still going to delete 100,000 people's pictures.
6 or 7 figures.
Yeah, which is real bad. Yeah.
I'm just trying to decide if I'm comfortable saying Windows 10 is the best Windows.
I think it's the number 2.
Okay.
Like if Windows 7 was still supported and I didn't make VR, like when I left tested, I was like, man, I could go back and put Windows 7 on my computer.
It just worked.
It just worked. Except I'd burned my Windows 7 key upgrading to Windows 10.
Exactly.
And also I was doing VR software, which doesn't really work very well in Windows 7.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that rolling back 2 versions is the smart thing to do.
Yeah. Well, again, lack of support is that's the death knell in this day and age, right?
Probably no UEFI support, probably no NVMe.
Again, that's like historical stuff, like at the time that didn't matter. Like now,
I'm not going to run Windows 7 now, realistically.
You shouldn't be running a operating system that old at this point.
Yeah, that's no longer supported. You look conflicted. Talk me through your process. What are you thinking about, Brad?
Like I said, I just think Windows 10 is very hot and cold.
Yeah.
I would probably put it at number 2.
Put it at number 2?
Yeah. Do you think it'll ever iron out a lot of these inconsistencies and like make it feel like a proper unified Windows again?
I mean,
knowing the history of Windows, I'm going to say definitely not.
I think the knock against Windows 10 is that each update is not necessarily better than the one that came before it.
Yeah.
Like some of them have definitely been better.
Yeah.
Some of them have been flat.
Sure.
A couple of them definitely worse.
Yes, absolutely.
So
there have been a good number of them are just like I install the update and I'm like, okay,
what changed?
I guess you updated it. I don't know. Like I'll go read a list and I'll be like, oh, the calendar app that I don't use has this and this now. Great, whatever.
If anything, like if I was close, I'm not close on 1 or 2 here. If I was close, I think the messages, the error messages, and like the install upgrade messages, don't worry, your files are safe. They're just right where you left them.
Not a huge fan.
Like that stuff, it's creepy,
especially when you say it in that voice. That's
man. We're taking good care of your stuff, Brad.
Windows 10 is a dark figure in a trench coat in an alleyway.
Hey man, you want your pictures back?
Hey, you want these files?
Yeah, get it on that insider ring. We'll give you your files back right now.
Opens the trench coat. I've got your files right here.
I think 2 is a good spot for Windows 10.
Okay. Yeah.
I think. Look, Windows 10, Windows 7, pretty short life.
Yeah. Maybe they didn't have time to screw it up.
They didn't have time to mess it up.
But what I remember of it was very solid.
Okay, so that's it. It's a definitive ordered list of Windowses.
But I will say Windows 10, especially again if they're going to support it for like years to come, if it's just the Windows for the foreseeable future, it's possible it could grow into the number 1 spot.
Do you think we're going to revisit this topic?
No, I'm not saying we will necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying like they could get it to a place where I would feel comfortable saying it's the best Windows.
You're saying if it bucks up and flies straight, keeps its head on right,
straight,
one day Windows 10
gets its act together,
could reach the number 1.
Straighten up, yeah.
I think it's important to give a Windows a room to grow.
I think you're right.
You don't want to clip its wings when it's just on an upswing.
I think I'm going to make Windows 10 smoke the whole pack. It'll learn its lesson.
Yeah, it better not to do this again. No more Candy Crush Windows 10.
No.
Don't delete people's photos.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Bad Windows.
Yes, that's not cool.
Okay, so here's once and for all.
All right.
Are we confident in this? You feel good?
TechPod ranking of, the ordering of Windows.
Ordering of Windows is number 11, Windows 8.
Richly deserved.
Yeah, for really more for the cell phone than anything else.
Yeah.
Like, hey, no, you can't have 2 windows open at the same time. Go to hell, Windows 8. Number 10, Windows Vista.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, Windows ME, Millennium Edition. Number 8, Windows 3.1. Number 7, Windows 95. I'm surprised Windows 95 is so low, actually.
Yeah.
But I think it's right.
Very historically significant.
Yeah.
But as an experience, as an actual operating system, like it had a lot of growing pains.
Yeah, it was a mixed bag.
It was not all the way there.
The thing we never say because it's a cliche.
Yes.
Number 6, Windows NT 4.
Okay.
Number 5, Windows 98. Number 4, Windows XP. Number 3, Windows 2000. Number 2, Windows 10. Number 1, Windows 7.
Okay.
The greatest Windows of all time.
That is not the result I would have expected going into this.
What were you thinking coming in?
I figured we'd probably just land on 10 by default.
Yeah.
But then once I actually started thinking about it, like Windows 10's a little uneven.
Yeah, unmarred. Windows 7 is unmarred, unsullied by the concerns of
A
commerce.
sterling reputation.
Yeah,
pristine.
It's fast. It's 3D accelerated.
Much like Aero Glass, it has a pristine reputation.
Oh yeah,
it's just
so translucent.
Yes.
Well, if you enjoyed this, there's an opportunity. There's 2 ways for you to leave feedback on this episode. One is you can email us. Next week, we'll have a Q&A episode coming up. So you can email us techpod@content.town with your questions, comments, or social statements.
And now that we've shifted our cadence
Yeah.
They'll have time to let us know how wrong we are about Windows.
And you can let us know if you like 2-part episodes. You want it? We can. I like to think of this as the best of both worlds.
I guess, okay, yeah.
Of the Tech Pod.
The season-ending cliffhanger.
I mean, we could just wait 2 months and then post the second part.
Wow. People will forget.
People would be pissed off by now.
Yeah. Also unplanned, I should point out. I don't think we went into this planning for this to be 2 episodes.
I did not think we were. Yeah, I didn't think we'd spend this much time talking about Windows 2000.
No idea that we would spend 2.5 hours talking about Windows.
So techpod@content.town is the email address, or the survey is still live. We talked about it the last couple of weeks. Yeah. You can go to survey.content.town.
We still have time to earn our undying appreciation.
Yes. Let us know how you think the pod is going. Leave comments. Let Brad know if you should upgrade his monitors or not. All these questions and more you can answer for us so that we can continue improving the pod.
Need to think about that one a little bit more.
That'll do it, I think. Yeah. I think we've talked enough.
Yes, I think you're right.
See you all next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.